Hi, everyone. Great to see the interest in Cosmos. Great to have everyone in Split here. So I'm the technical lead at Hydro, and I'll talk to you about why crossing chains can make you lose some gains. So when users come on chain, a lot of them, let's put it like that, they want to earn money, right? It's one of the main use cases. So on the one hand, we have kind of the meme coin trenches. There's anything where we have very directional bets on the market, right? So picking a meme coin, hoping it'll go 1,000x, doing a leveraged long on some token, right? And then on the other hand, we actually, in crypto, have like market neutral investing. So you can do things where you don't have to take market risk, and you can get great yield out of it. You can earn money with it. And this is the thing that we're trying to push more, and we're trying to build more, because it's just more sustainable, right? It's less PvP than going into trying to pick the right meme coin. So in TradFi, it's really hard to even beat inflation with the market neutral yields you can get, right? So you can invest in a stock market that has market risk, and otherwise, so here's a screenshot of my German bank. So if I have 50,000 euro, they're paying me a whole 0.4 APY on that, right? Revolut gives me 2%, then Wise gives 4% on US dollars. So if you want real returns in TradFi, you have to go into the market, you have to go into ETFs and so on, right? In crypto, we don't need that. We have great yields on chain. So these are some morpho vaults for stables, so you can get 26%, you can get 9% on your stable, so paid in US dollar stable coins. But these yields are kind of hard to actually realize, right? So yields change all the time. This is USDS on Aave Prime. There was a time when you could get 10%, when you could get 6%, 7%, and now the average overall time is just 5%, right? A morpho vault for USDC, you know, at some time you could get 20%, maybe even 30%, but the average is 6%. So the yields change all the time, where you can get the best yield changes, and sometimes it's very drastic. So here's DYDX perps volume. They went from about 10 billion like a year ago to about 2 billion now. And then the new kid on the block very recently is Aster, so they came in strong with like, you know, doing $60 billion in perps volume. And it's just as important for users to kind of chase the next big thing, because that's where the yield in crypto is, right? If you want these great returns, you have to be very active, and you have to reevaluate where you're deploying so often. So there is this opportunity where users can get great yields on chain, but it's kind of hard to actually realize that in a sustainable way. So what can we do about that? We want to build something that lets users get the rates on chain, actually earn money without having to bet on the market. And to realize that, we have to build something that fulfills a couple of criteria. So I'll go through these in order of importance. So we'll start by least important and then more important for generating great yields. So first, crypto enables us to build something that's not just a black box, right? So here's a screenshot of a robo-advisor. They can tell me what positions they're holding right now. They can list it in their interface. Similar with Coinbase, they will tell me how much Atom I'm currently holding. But what they cannot do is they cannot prove to me that they actually hold these funds, right? They're still a black box. I have to trust that they actually hold the funds that they're claiming they do. And crypto kind of uniquely enables us to have verifiability. So we can actually take a look at, so this is DBank, right? I can check how much is this address holding right now? Where are the funds? What are they doing with them? And then even if I don't have these fancy UI tools, I can go down to the ground truth. I can just query a blockchain node, and I can figure out what this address is holding. So in crypto, we kind of get this unique verifiability for fund management, essentially, for treasury management, that in TradFi you have to get through regulation, and you have to really rely on some legal framework around that. So then next, we can build something that's either custodial or trustless. So if we build something custodial to manage funds, what we might do is we might have some kind of vault contract, right? So we're still on chain. It's still verifiable what we're doing. But then we might have some kind of multi-sig solution or multi-party computation that then deploys the funds according to, you know, essentially what the multi-sig decides, right? And the problem with that, of course, is the multi-sig signers, they can misappropriate the funds if they collaborate. But also, in general, it's just hard to make strong commitments about how you're going to behave if you're custodial in this way, right? You can change the algorithm at any point in time. So one of the companies that's already trying to tackle this problem of letting users tap into crypto yield in a sustainable way, this is exactly what they're doing. So they have like a multi-sig wallet that has permissions to withdraw some funds, then to deploy them. They deploy them into Morpho. They bridge them wherever they need to go. So it's just the fact that they still need a multi-sig that makes it harder to interoperate with this. So to build on top of this, right? So instead, if we have the rules of how the funds are allocated written up on chain, then we can build something that's kind of more composable and more programmable, right? We can build primitives on top of it. If we strongly commit to how our algorithm will behave, then we can build things on top of it to interact with it. And then lastly, and this is really the most important thing for generating great yields on chain, is we need an app that's not just multi-chain, it has to really be cross-chain. So I'll go into what I mean by that in a second. But first, so the why multi-chain is already important is we just live in an age where there are so many L1s popping up, right? So this is Circle launching Arc, their own stablecoin issuance chain. Then we have Stripe. They are launching Tempo. We have Ondo doing real-world assets, issuing them in Cosmos. And then the perp stacks that I showed, Aster, they also have announced they're going to build their own L1. So it kind of shows that the finance is coming on-chain. So we have things like stocks, commodities, real estate. All of these are moving on-chain slowly. And everybody will want to issue on their own chain, right? So stablecoins want to issue on their own chain. Real-world assets want to issue on their own chain. And even breakout apps will likely have their own chain. They want to control their own stack. It's kind of what brings us all here. The vision of Cosmos always was to have these many, many chains. Everybody wants sovereignty. Everybody wants to control their tech, their infrastructure. And it gives me kind of the confidence in the vision of Cosmos. But it also has some problems that come with it, right? So being multi-chain isn't enough. What I mean by multi-chain is we have an app that's deployed on Ethereum, and then it might interact with some protocols on Ethereum, right? It can interact with smart contracts that also live on Ethereum. And then we can have our app deployed on Arc. It interacts with other applications built on Arc. But no functionality in this kind of model reaches across chains, right? Everything stays on the chain that it kind of started out on. So if we want to have our users earn money on chain, the setup just isn't good enough, right? The good yields, so where we actually have user interest, where we have activity, where we have volume, this just doesn't stay on a single chain. It will move around over time, and we don't need users to care about this, right? We want users to be abstracted, like one layer away from this. And why do we want that? Well, bridging is just a huge pain. So I'll show some screenshots from SkipGo and some other apps that are kind of the best in class at letting users bridge easily, that aggregate these bridges. And despite that, it's still quite painful. It's not that these teams are not doing very, very good work at making bridging legible. It's just that bridging is a very painful and hard problem, right? So here, not only do we not have only one WBTC, or God forbid, we have more than one BTC, but there's so many different tokens that all are very similar. For users, it's quite, if you're a first-time user, someone tells you, hey, I want to deposit BTC into something, and then you're confronted with that, because it's very difficult to understand what's going on, right? Why is there 20 different WBTCs? Then sometimes bridges can be unreliable, right? So if I'm a new user, I'm trying to bridge something somewhere, and I'm running into errors. There's multiple chains involved to debug on. Maybe I haven't ever interacted with one of those chains yet, right? So I'm just trying to get there, and then kind of having the headache of needing to understand what might be the issue, what's going on there, is quite difficult. Sometimes some bridges just aren't well serviced or aren't well integrated, right? We just might not find routes, or it might just be very complicated. There might be many different bridges for a certain route, actually. And then also bridges can be really slow. So bridging just fundamentally is very painful, right? So we have like 21 minutes to bridge from Ethereum to Cosmos, 40 minutes to bridge some Bitcoin to Osmosis, and then about an hour to bridge Bitcoin to Osmosis, and then even paying $8 in fees. So bridging is just really, really complicated, and we don't want our users to have to bear this kind of overhead, this mental burden of doing it. So what do we need to build a trustless, transparent, and really natively cross-chain, not just multi-chain, kind of robo-advisor, where people can just put their funds in, earn market-neutral yields, like risk-adjusted yields in crypto, without having to dedicate their life to doing it. And so I'll sketch a little bit the technical architecture of this. It's not going to be more than a brief overview of some of the challenges involved. So the first is, we really need to, as I showed before, we really need to put the rules for how we allocate funds on-chain. That's the key to make it trustless. That's the key to make it verifiable. We need to have our rules on-chain. Then we might need logic for every venue that we want to integrate, right? We have to kind of put a wrapper to unify their interfaces. And in order to be able to integrate everything, all these different venues, we just have to have some logic for each of them, right? We might need something like a yield oracle that can help us predict where the yield will be, because it might not be enough to look at the current state. We also will need to take into account what might happen soon. And then we need some kind of off-chain processing that has to be verified on-chain, but there might be some logic that's just difficult or expensive to run on-chain. Then, when we want to bridge, we have to take into account a variety of bridges. So just a couple examples. Circle has CCTP. We, of course, have IBC, one of the great bridges. We'd love if everyone had IBC, but sometimes we have to go to other options. There's Hyperlane, another bridge. And we really have to figure out at any point in time what's the best bridge to use so that our users don't have to do that, right? That's the work we want to take away from them. And we have to have all the logic for deciding between the bridges and for knowing when and how to bridge. That all has to live on-chain to be completely trustless. So I hope that gives you some idea of an architecture that we can actually implement that will allow us to have a verifiable, trustless, and really natively cross-chain robo-advisor that will optimize people's funds on-chain. And I think this is something that requires a very particular set of skills. And I think it's a challenge that really only a Cosmos team can take on. Cosmos has kind of pioneered the vision of L1s, the vision of interoperability. And this model I showed you, this problem, facing it really requires these skills that we've built in Cosmos. So with Hydro, we spun out of Informal Systems. And we think we're in a unique position to capitalize on this opportunity. So Informal Systems has been building a lot of the infrastructure that's powering Cosmos, and also that's powering this new generation of L1s. So I showed you Circle building Arc before. So at Informal, the team has been building Malachite, a consensus engine built in Rust that was acquired by Circle in order to further development of Arc. And then Informal also has been building a lot of interoperability. So this is a paper specifying the Tendermint Lite client. It's one of the key pieces that's used in IBC in order to enable the trustless bridging. And then also doing work on formally specifying the protocols built on top of IBC. So this is for fungible token transfer, a Quint specification, so a formal specification trying to prove some properties of this interchain standard. And then with Hydro, we've been running for about a year now a deployment of Atom from the Cosmos Hub community pool into various protocols around DeFi. So we've deployed around 4 million Atom and in about 20 different protocols by now without losing a single Atom. So we have the experience of running these large on-chain treasuries, deploying into DeFi, and knowing what it takes in order to keep these funds secure. And then lastly, another informal spin-out, Cycles, they're also diving headfirst into DeFi. So they're building a kind of next-gen payment app that uses clearing instead of token transfers in order to settle obligations. And we're integrating, and we think some of the exciting things that this can bring is reducing the friction in on- and offboarding, right? So if we can net out an on-ramp and an off-ramp, we can just make it so much easier for capital to flow on-chain, and we can integrate Hydro to really let users earn the best yield on whatever they have on-chain. So the vision that I've outlined, we're building that, and we call it Inflow. We're building that right now. We're in private beta right now. But if you want to learn more, then feel free to join our Telegram group, visit our website, hydro.markets. yeah, happy to have anyone reach out. Thanks.